A man got arrested for stealing a house. Not robbing it, literally stealing the entire house. How is that even possible? When most people think about hiding from police, they probably picture someone ducking behind a dumpster or sprinting through backyards. Well, criminals have gotten way more creative than that. And by creative, I mean absolutely ridiculous. Take this woman who decided the best place to avoid arrest was inside her own couch. Not behind it, not under it, literally stuffed between the cushions like loose change. Police officers walked into her living room for a routine search and noticed the couch looked a bit lumpy. When they lifted the cushions, there she was, curled up like a human pretzel. The officers later said it was one of the most uncomfortable-looking hiding spots they'd ever seen. Makes you wonder how long she planned to stay in there, right? Then there's the guy who thought a lawnmower would make the perfect getaway vehicle. He actually stole the mower specifically for his escape plan. The problem? He forgot that lawnmowers aren't exactly built for high-speed chases. Police followed him at a leisurely walking pace for about 6 blocks before the mower sputtered and died. No gas. The officers didn't even break a sweat during this pursuit. But wait, it gets weirder. One man decided his neighbor's roof was the ultimate fortress. After police arrived at his house, he somehow scrambled up there and just stayed. For 5 whole hours. Neighbors gathered below like they were watching a really boring circus act. Police tried negotiating, brought a ladder, even offered snacks. Nothing worked until it started raining and he finally climbed down, soaking wet and defeated. Restaurant ceilings apparently seem like good hiding spots until you actually try using one. A burglar thought he'd pulled off the perfect plan by crawling up there after breaking in. The ceiling tiles held his weight for exactly 37 minutes. Right when police officers entered the building to investigate, the entire section came crashing down. He landed right at their feet in a pile of dust and ceiling debris. Talk about perfect timing. And the weird part is, some people's hiding strategies involve just waiting it out. One person broke into a store, then decided to take a nap behind the freezer units. They slept there all night while police searched the building multiple times. The officers only found them the next morning when the store manager heard snoring coming from the back room. Imagine waking up to 3 confused police officers staring down at you. These aren't just random one-off incidents either. Police departments across the country report increasingly bizarre hiding attempts every year. Officers have found suspects in washing machines, inside mannequins, and even buried in sandbox sand at playgrounds. The creativity is almost impressive if it wasn't so completely pointless. What makes these stories even better is that most of these people had perfectly normal opportunities to just walk away before things got complicated. Instead, they chose the most uncomfortable, impractical, and obvious hiding spots imaginable. But speaking of impractical choices, nothing quite compares to what happens when Florida gets involved in the crime equation. Florida has earned a reputation for producing the most bizarre arrest stories, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. The state seems to have a magnetic pull for people who make questionable life choices. And when those choices involve costumes, nudity, and endangered animals, you know you're in for a wild ride. Take the man who decided alligator meat was worth stealing. Nothing unusual there, right? Wrong. This genius chose to dress as an alligator while committing the crime. Police found him waddling away from the scene in a full reptile costume, carrying stolen gator steaks. The irony was lost on absolutely no one except him. When officers asked why he wore the outfit, he apparently thought it would help him blend in better. At a seafood market in downtown Miami, then there's the car wash incident that still has locals scratching their heads. A man was spotted washing his vehicle completely naked in broad daylight at a busy intersection. Not just shirtless, completely nude. When police arrived, he was casually soaping up his windshield like nothing was wrong. His explanation? It was hot and I didn't want to get my clothes wet. The logic is flawless if you ignore basic public decency laws. But wait, it gets better. One woman thought riding a manatee would make for great social media content. These gentle sea creatures are federally protected, making her joyride both illegal and incredibly stupid. The manatee, understandably, was not having it. Wildlife officers tracked her down through her own Instagram posts. She literally provided the evidence for her own arrest. And the weird part is, fire seems to be a recurring theme in Florida arrests. One man's brilliant weed-burning technique involved dousing his pants in gasoline first. Predictably, his legs caught fire. When firefighters arrived, they found him hopping around his yard, half naked and singed. The weeds, by the way, were still perfectly intact. Let's not forget the beekeeper bandit who thought live insects would make excellent weapons. During a routine traffic stop, this guy grabbed a beehive from his backseat and hurled it at officers. The bees, apparently as confused as everyone else, stung him more than the cops. He ended up running in circles, swatting at his own aerial attack while police watched in amazement. What makes these stories even more incredible is how seriously the perpetrators took their plans. The alligator costume guy spent money on that outfit. The bee thrower actually kept hives in his car. These weren't spur-of-the-moment decisions. They required forethought and preparation. Well, Florida's climate might be perfect for growing oranges, but it also seems to cultivate some pretty extraordinary criminal minds. The Sunshine State keeps delivering stories that sound too ridiculous to be true, yet here we are, reading police reports that read like comedy scripts. Speaking of ridiculous criminal behavior, Florida isn't the only place where animals play starring roles in arrest stories. Wait until you hear what happens when crooks decide to involve everything from pythons to raccoons in their schemes. When criminals decide to involve animals in their schemes, things get weird fast. These aren't your typical partner in crime situations either. We're talking about people who somehow thought bringing pets, wildlife, and random creatures into illegal activities was a brilliant strategy. Take the guy who tried stealing a python by shoving it down his pants. Yes, you read that right. This mastermind walked into a pet store, grabbed a live snake, and decided his trousers were the perfect hiding spot. The snake disagreed violently. Store employees found him writhing on the floor, pants bulging with an angry reptile that was definitely not happy about its new accommodations. The snake escaped unharmed, but the thief's dignity didn't survive the encounter. But why stop at snakes when you can go full Noah's Ark? Police pulled over what they thought was a routine traffic stop, only to discover the driver's car packed with parrots and chickens. The vehicle looked like a mobile petting zoo gone wrong. Feathers everywhere, squawking that could wake the dead, and the smell? Let's just say air fresheners weren't helping. The driver claimed he was just moving pets for a friend, but couldn't explain why none of the birds were in cages or why his friend lived 3 states away. Then there's the arrested man who had a raccoon as his co-pilot in a stolen van. Picture this scene: police surround the vehicle, expecting a normal arrest, when suddenly a masked bandit pokes its head up from the passenger seat. Not the human kind of masked bandit, an actual raccoon, complete with tiny hands and attitude problems. The furry accomplice had apparently been living in the van, sharing stolen snacks with its human partner. Even the arresting officers admitted the raccoon was better behaved during booking than most suspects. Some criminals get creative with their animal accomplices. One woman used a ferret as her shoplifting distraction technique. She'd walk into stores with the ferret hidden in her jacket, then accidentally let it loose near the cash register. While employees scrambled to catch the escaped pet, she'd stuff merchandise into her bag. The plan worked exactly 3 times before store security caught on. Turns out ferrets aren't great at improvisation, and neither was she. The smuggling attempts get even stranger. Airport security discovered a passenger trying to sneak frogs and turtles through customs in his suitcase. Not exotic, valuable species either, just regular pond creatures he'd apparently scooped up from a local park. When questioned about his amphibian cargo, he insisted they were emotional support animals. The TSA agents weren't buying it, especially when one frog escaped and started hopping through the security line. What makes these animal-involved crimes so memorable isn't just their absurdity, it's the complete lack of planning involved. These weren't calculated heists with trained animals. These were spur-of-the-moment decisions that ignored basic logic, animal behavior, and common sense. While animals make questionable criminal partners, timing can be an even worse enemy for lawbreakers. Some criminals have such spectacularly bad timing that you'd think they were actively trying to get caught. Timing is everything in life, and apparently everything in crime too. Some criminals have mastered the art of getting caught at the absolute worst possible moments. We're talking about people who somehow manage to turn already bad decisions into legendary disasters. Take the romantic guy who decided to pop the question at a family BBQ. Sweet gesture, right? Well, not when you're a wanted man and half the local police force shows up for burgers. This Romeo went down on one knee to propose and found himself face down on the ground, getting handcuffed instead. His girlfriend said yes to the proposal, but had to wait for visiting hours to tell him. Then there's the brilliant couple who called 911 for help. Sounds normal until you realize they wanted police assistance moving stolen furniture from their apartment. They actually thought cops would show up with a truck and help load their getaway vehicle. The dispatcher stayed on the line just to make sure officers knew exactly where to find them. But wait, it gets worse. One shoplifter decided the perfect time to steal was during a Shop with a Cop event. You know those community programs where police officers help kids buy Christmas presents? This genius tried pocketing items while surrounded by uniformed officers taking selfies with children. He made it exactly 12 feet before getting tackled by 3 cops who thought he was playing some weird game. The award for worst getaway planning goes to the guy who crashed his escape car directly into the front steps of a police station, not near the station. Not in the parking lot, right into the building where dozens of officers were having their morning briefing. He stumbled out of the smoking wreck and asked if anyone called an ambulance. They called a lot more than that. And the classic facepalm moment belongs to the bank robber who forgot his mask at home. He walked up to the teller, demanded money, and got recognized immediately because he'd been banking there for 15 years. The teller knew his kids' names. She knew his dog's name. She even asked about his mother's hip surgery while hitting the silent alarm. He stood there making small talk until security arrived. Let's not forget the burglar who chose the world's worst hiding spot. After breaking into a restaurant, he climbed into the ceiling to avoid police. The ceiling couldn't handle his weight and gave way right as officers walked underneath. He landed on 2 cops like some kind of criminal piñata, covered in dust and regret. These stories prove that bad timing isn't just unfortunate, it's an art form. Whether it's proposing during a warrant sweep or asking police to help move stolen goods, these criminals turn simple mistakes into comedy gold. Speaking of mistakes, sometimes the real problem isn't timing but weapon choice. Because nothing says serious threat like attacking someone with pool equipment and kitchen utensils. When most people think about weapons in crimes, they picture guns, knives, maybe baseball bats. Well, criminals have apparently never heard of conventional thinking. Some of the strangest arrests happen when people grab whatever's nearby and decide it'll work just fine for their illegal activities. Take the mother-daughter duo who got into such a heated argument that they started swinging ab rollers at each other. Yes, those exercise machines, meant to give you six-pack abs, became medieval weapons. Police arrived to find workout equipment scattered everywhere and 2 very angry women with some serious upper body strength. The officers probably wondered if they needed fitness training to handle future domestic disputes. But physical fitness equipment seems downright normal compared to what happened at a convenience store robbery. A man walked in, lifted his shirt slightly, and announced he had a gun. The cashier handed over the money without question. Makes sense, right? Here's the twist. When police caught him later, they discovered his weapon was actually a banana. A banana! The robber had essentially held up a store with a piece of fruit that probably cost less than $1. Then there's the arrest that involved a pool noodle. You know those colorful foam tubes people use in swimming pools? Well, one suspect thought it would make excellent defense equipment when police tried to arrest him. He grabbed the nearest pool noodle and started swinging it around like some kind of aquatic sword. The officers probably felt like they were in the world's weirdest water fight, except it was happening on dry land and someone was going to jail. And the weird part is, some people actually think household items make good weapons substitutes. One man decided to attack a police officer with wasp spray instead of mace. His logic probably went something like this. It sprays, it's supposed to stop things close enough. The only problem, wasp spray works on wasps, not trained law enforcement officers. The man learned this lesson the hard way. But perhaps the most bizarre weapon choice involves a rubber chicken. Yes, a rubber chicken, the kind you'd find in a joke shop or use for a comedy routine. One person approached an ATM and demanded money from the machine using only this squeaky yellow bird. The ATM, being an inanimate object, didn't respond to threats. Neither did the security cameras, which captured the entire ridiculous scene for police to review later. Let's not forget that these weapon choices often backfire spectacularly. The ab roller fight ended with property damage charges. The banana bandit faced robbery charges that could have landed him years in prison over fruit. The pool noodle defender just made his resisting arrest charge more embarrassing. What's fascinating is how creativity and desperation combine to create these moments of criminal absurdity. These people grabbed whatever was available and hoped for the best, but ended up creating some of the most memorable arrest stories in police history. Speaking of memorable arrests, some laws are so strange that people break them without even realizing it, leading to situations that seem impossible. Some laws make perfect sense. Don't steal, don't hurt people, pay your taxes. But then there are arrests that make you question everything you thought you knew about what's actually illegal. Welcome to the bizarre world of wait. That can't be a real law. Moments. Take the man who decided a motorized shopping cart was his personal highway vehicle. Police found him cruising down a major interstate at a blazing 7 miles per hour, completely oblivious to the traffic chaos behind him. The cart, stolen from a grocery store 3 towns over. He told officers he thought it was perfectly legal since shopping carts don't need license plates. The highway patrol disagreed. Then there's the dynamic duo who redefined criminal stupidity. After successfully burglarizing a house, these two geniuses approached the nearest police car and asked for a ride to the airport. They explained they had a flight to catch and their getaway car had broken down. The officers, initially thinking it was a joke, quickly realized these weren't comedians. They were holding bags full of stolen jewelry and electronics. The arrest happened right there on the sidewalk. But here's where things get really weird. A woman was arrested for vandalizing her own lawyer's office with spray paint. Apparently, she was furious about losing her case and decided artistic revenge was the answer. The twist? She painted "My lawyer sucks" in bright pink letters across his windows. While technically her opinion, property damage is still property damage, even when it's aimed at someone you're paying. The parking ticket champion takes dedication to a whole new level. One man managed to accumulate unpaid parking tickets from 22 different cities across 3 states. We're talking hundreds of violations spanning 5 years. He claimed he was a traveling salesman who forgot to pay meters. Police weren't buying it, especially when they discovered he'd been using fake license plates for most of those tickets. Let's not forget the sleepy criminals. Some towns have made it illegal to fall asleep on park benches, leading to arrests that seem almost cruel. Officers wake up homeless individuals or exhausted workers only to slap them with citations. One man was arrested for dozing off while waiting for a bus that was running 2 hours late. He spent the night in jail for the crime of being tired in public. The really mind-bending part? These aren't isolated incidents. Every day, people get arrested for things that seem so minor or ridiculous that you'd think the cops were pulling pranks. But the law doesn't care about common sense sometimes. What makes these arrests even stranger is how the criminals often seem genuinely surprised. The shopping cart highway rider couldn't understand why everyone was so upset. The burglars asking for airport rides looked confused when officers started laughing. Speaking of confusion, some criminals make these guys look like masterminds. There's a special category of people who are so honest about their crimes that they practically arrest themselves. Their truthfulness becomes their downfall in ways that'll make you wonder how they survive daily life. Sometimes criminals make the police's job ridiculously easy. These aren't master thieves or criminal masterminds. These are people who basically arrested themselves through sheer honesty and mind-blowing mistakes. Take the burglar who decided to personalize his crime. After breaking into a house and stealing jewelry, he thought it would be smart to engrave his own name on a stolen watch, his actual name. When police found the evidence, they didn't need to run fingerprints or check databases. The guy literally signed his confession with an engraving tool. He handed them his identity on a silver platter, or in this case, on a stolen Rolex. Then there's the woman who took responsibility to a whole new level. She called 911 herself, not to report a crime, but to report that she was currently drunk driving. The dispatcher probably thought it was a prank call at first. "Hello, I'm driving drunk right now, and I think you should arrest me." Police didn't even need to patrol the streets that night. She gave them her exact location, stayed on the line, and waited patiently for her arrest. Talk about turning yourself in with style. But wait, it gets better. One thief managed to combine stupidity with the worst luck imaginable. During a convenience store robbery, he panicked when the cashier asked for ID to verify a credit card he was trying to use. Instead of running or making an excuse, he handed over his real driver's license, his actual government-issued identification card. At the scene of his own crime, the cashier looked at the ID, looked at him, then calmly called police while he was still standing there. Let's not forget the lottery winner who created his own perfect storm of bad decisions. This shoplifter stuffed expensive electronics down his jacket and made a run for it. Racing toward the exit, a winning lottery ticket fell out of his pocket. Not just any lottery ticket, but one with his name and address clearly written on the back. Store security found it immediately. The ticket was worth $300, which was less than what he tried to steal, but enough to pay for his own capture. Police showed up at his house the next morning with both an arrest warrant and congratulations on his lottery win. And the weird part is, some criminals actively seek out their own arrest in the most backward ways possible. One wanted man decided he needed a career change and thought law enforcement might be perfect for him. He walked into a police station and filled out a job application. A complete application with his real name, address, and social security number. The same police station that had been actively investigating him for armed robbery for 6 months. Officers recognized his name immediately from their wanted list. He was arrested before he finished filling out the previous work experience section. These cases prove that sometimes the biggest enemy of a criminal isn't the police or security cameras. It's their own honesty and complete lack of common sense. While these people were busy incriminating themselves, other criminals were making equally bizarre mistakes, but for completely different reasons. Mistaken identity cases usually involve lookalikes or name mix-ups. But when police work meets pure coincidence, reality becomes stranger than fiction. These arrests prove that sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Take the case of identical twins in Milwaukee who managed to confuse an entire crime scene. Both brothers showed up wearing matching red hoodies and jeans, completely by accident. When witnesses saw the guy in the red hoodie rob a convenience store, they pointed at both twins standing outside. Police couldn't tell them apart either. The security footage was useless because the quality was too grainy. Even their own mother admitted she sometimes mixed them up. The real kicker, the guilty twin had an alibi, while the innocent one couldn't prove where he'd been. Talk about winning the genetic lottery in the worst possible way. Then there's Marcus Thompson from Denver, who experienced the most unlucky day in criminal justice history. He got arrested 3 times in 12 hours. First arrest, outstanding parking tickets during a routine traffic stop. Released on bail, he immediately shoplifted snacks from the courthouse vending machine because apparently he was stressed about being arrested. Second arrest complete. While waiting for his friend to bail him out again, he got into a bar fight defending some stranger's honor. Third arrest before dinner time. While Marcus wasn't planning a crime spree, he was just spectacularly unlucky with timing. Let's not forget the woman in Phoenix who insisted her doppelganger committed armed robbery. Sarah Chen had security footage showing someone who looked exactly like her robbing a bank. Same height, same hair, same distinctive scar on her chin. The resemblance was uncanny. Chen hired a lawyer and everything, claiming she had an evil twin somewhere. Turns out, she'd forgotten about her own crime. The stress of being caught had triggered temporary amnesia. Her brain literally blocked out the memory of robbing a bank. Even the getaway car was registered in her name. But the parade incident in New Orleans takes the cake. A man dressed as Napoleon Bonaparte was arrested during Mardi Gras because police thought he was part of an elaborate heist crew. The real criminals had used costumes to blend in with parade performers. This guy just really loved historical accuracy and expensive uniforms. He'd spent months crafting authentic buttons and everything. Police held him for 6 hours while the actual thieves escaped dressed as jazz musicians. The Napoleon enthusiast missed the entire parade he'd been preparing for all year. And here's where name mix-ups get dangerous. 2 men named William Rodriguez lived in the same apartment building in Miami. One was a kindergarten teacher. The other dealt drugs. Police raided apartment 4B looking for the dealer, but arrested the teacher from 4A instead. The teacher had been grading papers when SWAT burst through his door. His biggest crime was using too much red ink on math tests. It took 3 days to sort out the paperwork because both men had the same middle initial too. Sometimes reality writes better stories than fiction ever could. These cases remind us that coincidences don't just happen in movies, they happen in courtrooms, usually at the worst possible moment.